In 1962, historian Barbara Tuchman referred to World War I as a trap, one from which there was and has been no exit. The Great War brought technology and world conflict into reality like no other war had before it. The best of America's youth, including over 100 from California's capital city, would heed the call and fall into that trap, never to see the Sacramento Valley again. Here is the story of 7 of those soldiers who, if alive today, would know precisely what you meant if you invoked terms like Boulevard Park, Oak Park, Paradise Beach, or Land Park. They knew Sacramento, they attended its schools, they swam its rivers, and they stood before its Capitol building. James Sarsfield ONeal, the son of Irish immigrants, was born on April 14, 1900. His family, made up of 5 sons and a daughter, was led by his widowed mother, Mary. They lived at 1322 O Street. While his brothers sought a life of farming, James was different. He attended Sacramento High School, where he was senior class president, and he excelled at debate and history. After graduating in 1917, James went on to the University of California, but only staying in Berkeley for a very short time before enlisting in the Army. By the time November 1918 arrived, the boy whose class salutation read, "One we've put to every test, one who always gave his best," had been killed in a war taking place a continent and ocean away. A timid grace sits trembling in her eyes, what was said of ONeal's Sac-High classmate and neighbor, Lily Todhunter, a resident of 1508 O Street. After graduation in 1917, she went to work for the Phoenix Milling Company, but sought something more. By 1918, she had enlisted in the Navy and was stationed at Mare Island Navy Yard. Lily reported on station in September as a yeoman 3rd class. However, by the end of the month, she had become quite ill. It was the Spanish influenza. She died at Mare Island on October 21st and received a burial with full military honors, with a bugler sounding taps. Just days after her death, the Sacramento Bee stated that a search of government records by Navy officials develops that Miss Lillian Todhunter was the first girl in the Navy to die in service to her country. Everett J Vossler of 2527 J Street loved insects, and that's what brought him to Sacramento after graduating from the Colorado Agricultural College in 1911. By 1914, he had risen to the post of Secretary of the State Commission of Horticulture. In January of 1917, he journeyed to Australia to collect specimens and made a significant contribution to California's fruit ecology by sending home the half-grown black scale, which significantly cut back on the black scale infestation which had been pestering the coastal areas of Southern California. The tall, blondish, and blue-eyed Vossler loved golf and could be found out and about Sacramento's municipal links, but he seemed to love his country more. Shortly after returning from Australia in 1918, Vossler joined the Field Artillery, Battery B, and was in training in San Diego when he succumbed to the Spanish influenza on November 17, 1918. He was called by E.O. Essig in his History of Entomology one of the most promising of the younger generation of entomologists. Hugo Frank Woolner of 1315 H Street was a total math whiz. In February 1916, the 25-year-old bank clerk won an adding contest at the Travelers Hotel on 5th and J Streets. He was able to list an amazing total of 100 checks in 1 minute 31 seconds. As a proud 1913 graduate of Sacramento High School, Hugo went on to work for the California National Bank on 4th and J Streets. Things got even better for Hugo, as in the spring of 1918 he married his sweetheart, Miss Frida Caldarella. Just weeks later, though, Hugo was off to France serving as a clerk in the 91st Infantry Division. Although holding a task that would seemingly keep him far out of harm's way, Hugo was sent into combat in September of 1918. According to his lieutenant, he died of wounds suffered during an attack in the Iponville sector of the Argonne. His heartbroken Frida never remarried and died in San Francisco in 1983. George MacKay Carlson came from a blue-collar family which lived at 2308 H Street. George worked as a canner at Libby, McNeil & Libby on 31st and Stockton and was drafted in September of 1917. Once in France, he ended up fighting in Company C of the Army's 26th Infantry Division. Carlson loved to write and kept in constant contact with his family. However, when George's letters stopped, his parents feared the worst. If it weren't for a letter from his sister Anna that had been stuffed under the doughboy's pillow, word of his death may have taken much longer to get back to Sacramento. George was fighting along the front when on July 24th he suffered a gunshot wound to the head. By the 30th, he was gone, and with French and American flags adorning his coffin, he was buried on August 9th. His body was returned to Sacramento in 1921 for reburial at the East Lawn Cemetery, just blocks away from Libby, McNeil & Libby, where he had worked. Before he left Sacramento, he went by Gerald. When he returned from UC-Berkeley, he would only answer to Jack, a man about Strawberry Canyon and member of the Cal chapter of Delta Kappa Epsilon. Jack Ebner of 1248 39th Street was the epitome of the golden boy. Part of a well-to-do family, handsome, athletic, a football star at Sac High and later a rower at Berkeley, and he was bright. Ebner was the composite of the American ideal of youth. After graduating from Berkeley in 1917 with a degree in mechanical engineering, Jack looked to serving his country and doing it in the Aviation Corps, where after scoring the highest in his class at North Island Training Station in San Diego, he rose to the rank of second lieutenant. While eager to get to France, he did express fear of pneumonia. This was indeed a harbinger of things to come. While in transit across the Atlantic, he fell ill. It was the Spanish flu. He died on March 12th. His crestfallen family immediately bought $47,000 in war bonds to memorialize their Jack, and on April 12th, he was buried in a private service at the city cemetery. In 1930, a group of American mothers traveled to France to visit the resting place of their sons. One was Jenny Schuler, mother of Louis Baptiste Schuler of 1617 11th Street. As a member of the city's YMCA, he loved athletics and possessed a strong faith as a member of the St. Paul's Episcopal Church. After attending Mary J. Watson Grammar School and then Sacramento High School, Louis Baptiste enlisted in the U.S. Marines. He was assigned to hospital training school at Goat Island and then Quantico, Virginia. Soon after arriving in France, in the early summer of 1918, the young corpsman was sent to Chateau Thierry with the 3rd Marine Replacement Battalion. During the evening of the first day on the front, June 21st, Louis Baptiste was severely injured. He held on for a few days, dying on the 24th. This battle at Belleau Wood has largely been viewed as the seminal event in the creation of the modern Marine Corps. Louis Baptiste Schuler was buried with full military honors at the Ain Marne American Cemetery in Belleau, France. These are but a few of the many Sacramentans who perished in the Great War. They were machinists, mail carriers, undertakers, farmers, butchers, and accountants. Each so different, but all the same. Hearts of the Sacramento Valley.